Today we are going to move on to chapter 4 of The Wind in the Willows. Today's chapter is called The Motorcar Spell. Once the horse was harnessed, they set off, all talking at once. It was a golden afternoon. The smell of the dust they kicked up was rich and satisfying. Out of thick orchards on either side of them, birds whistled to them cheerily, and rabbits, sitting at their front doors in the bushes, held up their forepaws and said, "Oh my, oh my, oh my!" Late in the evening, tired and happy, they drew up to a remote field, turned the horse loose to graze, and ate their simple suppers sitting on the grass. Toad talked about all that he was going to do in the days to come, while the stars grew fuller and larger all around them. A yellow moon, appearing suddenly and silently from nowhere in particular, came to keep them company and listen to their talk. At last, they turned into their little bunks in the cart. After so much open air and excitement, the toad slept very soundly, and no amount of shaking could rouse him out of bed the next morning. So the rat saw to the horse and lit a fire while the mole trudged off to the nearest village for milk and eggs, which the toad had, of course, forgotten. The hard work had all been done, and the two animals were resting by the time Toad appeared on the scene, fresh and relaxed. He remarked what a pleasant, easy life it was they were all leading now, after leaving the cares and the worries and fatigues of housekeeping at home. They had a pleasant ramble that day. It was not until afternoon that they came out on the high road, and there disaster sprang out on them. They were strolling along easily. The mole was by the horse's head, talking to him, since the horse had complained that he was being frightfully left out of it. The toad and the water rat were walking behind the cart, walking together, when far behind them they heard a faint warning hum. Like the drone of a distant bee, glancing back, they saw a cloud of dust with a dark center of energy. It was advancing on them at an incredible speed, while from the dust a faint poop-poop sound wailed like an uneasy animal in pain. And in an instant, the peaceful scene was changed. The poop-poop sound rang with a brazen shout in their ears. They had a moment's glimpse of a piece of glittering plate glass and a magnificent motor car. Its driver, tense and hugging his wheel, blinded them with a cloud of dust and then dwindled to a speck in the far distance. The old gray horse, dreaming as he plodded along, simply abandoned himself to his natural emotions, rearing, plunging, backing steadily. He drove the cart backward toward the deep ditch at the side of the road. There was a terrible crash, and the canary-colored cart lay on its side in the ditch. The rat danced up and down in the road in anger. "You villains!" he shouted, shaking both fists. "You scoundrels, you road hogs! I'll have the law after you. I'll report you. I'll take you through the courts." Toad sat straight down in the middle of the dusty road. His legs stretched out before him and stared in the direction of the disappearing motor car. His breath was short. His face wore a satisfied expression, and at intervals he faintly murmured, "Poop, poop." The mole was busy trying to quiet the horse, which he succeeded in doing after a time. Then he went to look at the cart, on its side in the ditch. It was indeed a sorry sight. The windows smashed, axles hopelessly bent, one wheel off, and sardine tins scattered. The rat came to help him, but even together they could not lift up the cart. "Hey, Toad," they cried. "Come lend a hand." The toad didn't answer or budge from his seat in the road. Rat and Mole found him in a sort of trance, a happy smile on his face, his eyes still fixed on the dusty trail of their destroyer. He was still heard to whisper, "Poop, poop." "What are we to do with him?" asked the mole and the water rat. "Nothing at all," replied the rat firmly. "He has got a new craze, and it always takes him this way. In its first stage, he'll continue like that for days now, like an animal walking in a happy dream. He will be quite useless for practical purposes. Never mind him." The rat knotted the horse's reins over his back and took him by the head, carrying the birdcage that had fallen from the cart to his other hand. "Come on," he said grimly to the mole. "It's 5 or 6 miles to the nearest town, and we shall just have to walk." They had not gone very far on their way, however, when there was a pattering of feet behind them, and Toad caught up and thrust a paw inside the elbow of each of them. "Now look here, Toad," said the rat sharply. "As soon as we get to town, you'll have to go to the police station and lodge a complaint against it. And then you'll have to arrange for the cart to be picked up and fixed." "Police station? Complaint?" murmured Toad dreamily. "Me complain of that beautiful, that heavenly vision? Fix the cart. I'm done with carts forever. Oh, Ratty, you can't think of how thankful I am for you coming on this trip. I wouldn't have gone without you, and I might never have seen that swan, that sunbeam, that thunderbolt." The rat returned from him in despair. "You see," he said to the mole, addressing him across Toad's head, "he's quite hopeless. I give it up. When we get to town, we'll go to the railway station, and with any luck, we may pick up a train that will get us back to the riverbank tonight. And if you ever catch me going along with this crazy animal again," he snorted. The following evening, Mole was sitting on the bank fishing when Rat came along strolling to find him. "Heard the news?" he said. "There's nothing else being talked about all along the riverbank. Toad went up and down on an early train this morning. He has ordered a very large and very expensive motor car."